Okay, welcome back to the United Pubcast, the podcast of the official Man United Supporters Club here in Sydney for your match review of the 1-1 draw against Southampton and probably the most predictable score, predictable performance, predictable result, predictable score, predictable everything, Larry. We saw this come in a couple of days ago. We went out to the pub all excited and ultimately got what we deserved and expected.
I'd love to be here, Tom, telling you it was a surprise, but it wasn't. We said at half time, we were there in the pub together amongst other fellow Reds, and we said it. It goes, this is the order we seem to fall into the last couple games. United will score early, will create a whole heap of chances. There'll be a disallowed goal or an offside goal, and then it'll be half time, and then you'll concede early in the second half, and that was all she wrote. I'd love to be here and telling you I expect different, but unfortunately, we're sitting here after another draw, and you got to say, in what's been a really favourable run, United have really, really dropped the ball.
I think that's definitely frustrating, but also we always look to the future after these bad results and say, yeah, what are the fixtures ahead? If we can make up games, and the fixtures coming up as well are favourable as well. So we look forward and say, okay, maybe we can turn it around and get results. That's what we were saying a month ago with these fixtures, but ultimately we haven't taken advantage of these fixtures. We've absolutely shit the bed, unfortunately, but there are a few guys in the chat, so we'll just say good evening to, and obviously a few guys were obviously there last night at the Supporters Club, which I'll get your thoughts on as well before we move on to the football. But firstly, to the guys in the chat, Josh, good to see you last night. Rob as well, always a pleasure watching the match with Rob. Very animated, enjoyed that very much. Another frustrating and predictable result, but a night out with lads made all worth it. Yeah, look, if I was watching that match at home, Larry, at 11:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was, that just would have been, I was obviously just frustration at the pub. But if I just had to just go to bed, it would have been a nightmare. But actually being able to sort of chat and have a bit of a laugh, like the frustration was there was anger. But as you said, we were just discussing off air, it was kind of comical at times when you are watching the match with your mates. You can put not a positive spin, but a light-hearted spin on some of the things. I was watching the match with Emad. Obviously, he's made his sort of feelings clear on Harry Maguire. For watching the match with him, and every time the ball went near Harry Maguire, we'll just both just sort of burst into tears, laugh, and it was very enjoyable viewing, as frustrating as the match was. But a few more guys in the chat. Dion, good to see you, mate. Matt from the Supporters Club, good to see him last night as well. Mike as well. Evening, guys. After a hard day at work yesterday, I'm glad I didn't have to stay up to watch that live last night. The replay this morning was bad enough. I'm not putting myself through the replay. It's one of those hard ones when you watch the match at the pub because you are chatting to people around you. You don't quite get a full grasp of what happened in the match, like the technicalities in regards to tactics and everything, but I'm not going to put myself through it. I actually forget the Southampton goal. You're going to have to talk me through it in terms of what happened. I heard a few people saying Rafael Varane was actually the one maybe at fault. I couldn't tell you. So feel free to let me know in the live chat. Emad, as always, good to see you, mate, especially last night. Wes in the chat, always good to see you, and Vin as well. Always a pleasure having dinner with you last night as well. We'll bring this one up before we get into last night, Larry. Ted Lasso, this story, I just want to touch on it. When it first came out, I thought nonsense. That's nothing. But then you look further into it and you think it might be a nothing story where it's just a joke. They're not sort of demeaning him. It's just a joke where they hear the American accent and it's just something they're talking about in the dressing room. They're not really taken away from his coaching ability or status. But I can see that now. Now that sort of I've read the story once or twice, I think it is true. I
hope it's true. Honestly, it's pretty funny. It is pretty funny. Ted Lasso?
I don't have it, but I've seen like the clips pop up on YouTube and Instagram.
I hope it's true. I could see this. You look at the rumors that come out of Manchester United, it has to be the English players. I can't imagine Ronaldo who knows who Ted Lasso is.
Yeah.
It's just comical though. You could picture it, couldn't you? That's the sad bit. It's a sad bit, yet the funny bit. You could picture McTominay or Luke Shaw having Maguire or Shaw having a joke over there. Well, look at this bold fella. He's coaching with his little Yank accent. Oh, it's like having Ted Lasso out here.
Well, Mike's saying here, what's the story? There was a report coming out, Mike, that the players were talking I think his name's Chris Armas, the new American assistant coach, that sort of referring him to as like Ted Lasso, obviously, because the American accent. Sam here from the Supporters Club, good to see him last night. Much better watching at the pub with a few beers. I watched that at home and I don't sleep because I'm furious. That's what I'm thinking. I didn't have to just go straight to bed. I could sort of dissect and digest it a little bit after the match. But in regards to the match, we're going to get on to individual performance, Larry's, and 3-2-1s. And I don't think we're scraping the bottom of the barrel in 3-2-1s. I think there were some not standout performances, but some positive performances in a lackluster display. But in regards to the game, is it just as straightforward as what we sort of opened the podcast with? And it was started well, played some good football, got the goal, got your standard disallowed goal. Rightly so, it was disallowed. Obviously, some of the Manchester United players are struggling with the offside rule at the moment and their understanding of that rule. Anthony Elanga in that second half, I couldn't get my head around what he was doing. But and then obviously halftime, and I think Rob even called it maybe at halftime. He was saying, "Don't concede in the 47th minute." He said something along those lines because that's what Middlesbrough did, or was it Burnley or Middlesbrough? One of them did it the other day,
Burnley.
and obviously conceded in the 47th minute again. And then ultimately, I remember watching the Mad, or sitting next to him, Mad, and when we went in the injury time, 90th minute came on 1-1. Could you just draw this scenario up in your mind, Larry? 1-1 against the mid-table club in the Premier League. Let's call Southampton a mid-table club in the Premier League. 1-1 at Old Trafford. United are attacking the Stretford end, and the fourth official puts 5 minutes up on the injury time board. Your reaction 10 years ago would have been, okay, let's go on. Whether we win, you know what's going to happen. The cameraman's going to turn off. He's going to walk away. He's just going to focus the camera on the Stretford end goal and walk away. That's where the game's going to be. Whether we score the goal or not, that's what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes. The referee put 5 minutes up, and me and Matt looked at each other and think, we used to actually enjoy that 5 minutes. Okay, we're going to potentially go on and score a goal. However, with 5 minutes, you think, hang on, that's time for Southampton to go and win this. And ultimately, they very well could have. And that's the most almost concerning sign for me was when that injury time went up. I was thinking, let's hang on here. Even though it's Manchester United home to Southampton, I was thinking, geez, 5 minutes, Southampton might score here.
I'm going to go a step back, and I said this to you at the time. I thought the substitution to take McTominay off for Elanga was a really poor one. You look at Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba sitting together in a 4-4-2. I can understand what Ralph was trying to do. He's trying to get an extra attacker on there, hopefully to get a goal. But you need to control the game. You need someone in there who can decide what speed we need to play at. I hate it. I know it's so lazy. But if you think of what Paul Scholes was so good at in the later years of his career, he could speed up a game. He could slow down a game depending on if we were ahead or chasing a goal. The same with Michael Carrick. We just really lack that player. And Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, great players, not the two players or the two central midfielders I want on the football pitch when I'm trying to win a football match. They need someone who's going to calm them down or be able to manage the game while one or two of those two players are trying to be creative in the final third. I thought that was a comical substitution. But in saying that, it speaks to the lack of quality we have in midfield, doesn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately. I thought Pogba and Bruno, especially in the first half, were very good. We'll talk about the second half.
We just lost all control. I just thought once those two, like you think of the Fergie years when we push on in that, when you have injury time. We had no control of the ball.
But the control, and whether it be control with the ball or without the ball, it's something Ralph Rangnick has spoken about in every single press conference. Yet the way he sort of goes about his team selection and his business and play selection and everything, it's like he goes against his word. Like you think if you want control, don't be making the decisions you're currently making because it goes against everything you're sort of saying. But we'll get into that in a little bit and Ralph Rangnick's role in the draw. But Dion, here, if you knew nothing about English football, you'd assume Man United and Southampton were similar-sized clubs and evenly matched squads. I think it's one of the ones where we've had this discussion before with Southampton, their midfield, who would come into the Man United midfield. It's one of those ones, yeah. If you take away the reputation and the name, very even. You look at what Southampton, and fair play to them, they sort of played Tottenham off the park the other day as well. So you do have to give them credit, but obviously we're Man United fans who are going to look in our own backyard and the issues. But is there anything else before we get into individuals, Larry? Performance-wise, because I do look at that control, and that maybe I want to touch on Ralph Rangnick here in regards to the performance. He doesn't do himself any favors, and look, I like him. This is not a criticism or try not to be too critical of him, but in regards to that control, which I always come back to, and he comes back to, the selection of Harry Maguire, when you've got a better look, and we can have a debate about Maguire and Lindelof in regards to overall package, but ultimately the answer at the moment has to be Victor Lindelof, and especially in regards to control, because the pressure Harry Maguire puts you under, and also Harry Maguire in that situation, but also further up the pitch in regards to control, and Marcus Rashford, and the exact same decisions he was ultimately making time and time again. Ultimately, he got an assist. Fair play to him for that. I don't want to say easy assist, but quite standard. I think any player makes that pass. But ultimately, there is just no control, and I think that can be it can be avoided with a better team selection, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. There's not really much more to add to that, Tom. I, like you said, if Rennick's going to come out and say United need to control, United need to be better in possession, United need to be more compact when they're defending, playing a defender who is terribly out of form, lacking confidence, lacking leadership, lacking in just about everything you need him to be basically thriving in, he doesn't do himself any favors. You're 100% right there.
Well, Imad here's saying in regards to Bruno Fernandes, we had this discussion yesterday, a certain midfielder pressing like a headless chook all game didn't help. Was a weird one. I actually forget the incident. Everyone spoke about him pressing the goalkeeper and then Southampton scored. I didn't actually see that, but I can very well imagine it happening. Might have been
He
the toilet or
contributes
having a
for
drink.
sure.
So, but that's something he hasn't been doing. So I don't know where that came from because he was playing in a 4-3-3. He wasn't playing in that 10 role. And that's something that I don't want to say he's improved in his game because it's nothing to improve upon. It's just standard. Stay in your position. I shouldn't be praising someone for doing that in recent weeks. But he has been doing that in recent weeks. And I didn't actually see the incident, but everyone's talking about it. So I assume it did happen. I don't understand why he has done that.
Because Bruno Fernandes does what Bruno Fernandes wants, and that's the problem. There's too many individual players, which, inevitably will come up in this conversation. You look at this team on paper, Tom. It's man for man, it's a better team than Southampton. But there are too many individuals out there who are just terribly out of form or don't know how to complement their teammates. And unfortunately, you can carry one or two of those in a match, but when you have 4, 5, 6 of those out of your 11, you're just going to lose football games.
The one with Bruno, and this will split opinion amongst obviously people I watched the match with as well, but Josh is saying I thought Bruno had a good game, and it's one I thought he was good, and then I also thought at times he was the worst player on the pitch. I didn't know what I made of his performance because I was watching the match in the second half, and I'll tell you, we'll get into Ronaldo's performance in a little bit, but as a striker, I was watching Ronaldo. I'm thinking, I'll tell you who the striker we should have had in that second half. Did I mention this to you last night? Tell you who would have suited that game perfectly and maybe suit Manchester United and a Bruno Fernandes down to the ground?
Well, you're going to say Juan Mata for sure.
Marouane Fellaini. I thought that game, the way we were playing and the way the decisions Bruno was making with the ball in midfield, I thought we missed Marouane Fellaini. And that's a sad sign of the times, in my opinion.
We just go long ball. When United run out or we're behind or we're, it's 1-1 or 0-0, United go long ball. We try to play like Stoke City, and what a waste of the talent we have in those final thirds. Look, Tom, it's honestly Rennick. A lot of the players take most of the blame here, but Rennick's not without fault. I think it's so clear we've hired a coach who hasn't been a coach for the best part of the last decade, and you're seeing that. You're seeing that United really struggle to implement his game plan, really struggling to execute the game plan. And when we do press well, we do it well for about 30 minutes. Now, one side of you could say, well, the players simply aren't fit enough. Well, the other side and the more realistic and the scientist side of this, the scientific side of this would be if you know you need a preseason to get these players in a type of condition to press all game, maybe don't play with a high pressing system so we're not fading out in the second half. It's not rocket science.
The last bit on Ralph and sort of use the word implement there in regards to him getting his message across and the players. As I said, in terms of what he wants at the moment and whether long-term Maguire's good enough or not good enough, and the same can go but for Marcus Rashford. At the moment, what Rashford and Maguire are doing goes in terms of the words we hear from Ralph Rangnick, they're the two players he would hate as footballers. They're exactly what he doesn't want in a team. He's picking them. My question is why? And obviously I've said on here in terms of the play power, and that is why he's picking them. But ultimately, another sort of home game at home to Southampton, here's the chance where he can drop a Rashford, he can drop his captain, and you can put it down and you can put it in the rest category if you want. But I just think it's a weird one where I can't understand why he's picking players that he would hate. He would hate what Marcus Rashford is bringing to the team. He would hate what Harry Maguire is bringing to the team, yet they're playing. I can't get my head around it, and it comes down to he's not picking the team.
Look, I would hate to think that that's the case. I would like to think he is picking the team. No, I think that can't be the case. I think in the Rashford scenario, he doesn't really have a lot of options. As much as we could say, bring Rashford out, who comes in realistically? You've got Anthony Elenga, who, if I'm being honest, he goes hard. He's a young kid. You want him to do well. In terms of ability and talent, is he great? He's okay. Does he have a long-term future at United? I'm not 100% sure he does. In the long term, Mason Greenwood's not available. No one could have planned for that. And unfortunately, that really just leaves us really thin. It's like I said to you last time. It's amazing to think when we signed Ronaldo, you wondered how are all these players going to play. Now you look at the front three. Outside of what starts, there's truthfully not much behind. We're in a position where we're asking Jesse Lingard to play on the wing. It's a really sad state of affairs, and it just shows how poorly this club is run.
On Ronaldo, you just mentioned I was going to bring him up a little bit later, but we'll touch on him now because I thought he was poor. And look, he's been poor for a couple of weeks, and he could put in that same performance. And if the goal goes in, we're saying Ronaldo's done his job and ultimately a good performance. However, if we sitting here and saying Ronaldo had a poor game, which I am doing, would be then saying, well, that's because we need another striker. Let's play Edison Cavani, or if Marcus Rashford was in form, play Marcus Rashford through the middle. However, I watch Ronaldo's performance and think, well, okay, put Edison Cavani there. It's not going to change anything. Edison Cavani wasn't going to make us play better or do anything different to Ronaldo was doing. So I don't know where. Obviously, Ronaldo has to take responsibility his performance, but I don't think it was off the back of. I've seen strikers for the past 5 or 6 years have that performance, and he ultimately did have service. He did have 1 or 2 chances, but I don't see any other striker in Man United's team providing a better performance or contributing to the team more than what Ronaldo did, and he did little.
I think Cavani is probably the better option at the moment, if I'm being honest. Like, if we remove
he proven that when he plays, though?
Well, no, I think if you look at the first half, now I know we created chances, but we also have to remember Southampton played into United's hands. They weren't sitting in a low block in that first half. It wasn't until that they actually scored themselves that Southampton actually tried to sit deep and hit United on the counter. I think with Cavani and what you saw in the Burnley match was he started, and I actually thought United played some of their better football. I think Cavani, the way he plays now, you could argue who's the better player. Cavani's a more well-rounded striker. If you look at Ronaldo, if he doesn't score goals, Tom, what exactly does he contribute to the side? And I think with Cavani, he can bring others into play. He passes well. He's aggressive. He presses from the front. Problem with Cavani is his injury record's not much better than Eric Bailly's, if I'm being honest. So,
Dion, he's saying solution. Yeah, well, he's injured again, and we've had questions. And again, we absolutely love Edison Cavani, but we do have to have questions over not. Obviously, he's committed on the pitch. Of course he is. But his commitment to the club is up for debate. Ronaldo makes himself available. Whatever you make of his performance, he puts his hand up to play every week. Unfortunately, as much as we love Cavani, if you look at the facts, he doesn't put his hand up to play every week. So it's a weird one. But Varane here. I wish Varane was in the chat. But Alex saying anyone else noticed Varane is overcompensating for how bad and slow Harry Maguire is, and is playing close to him, also dragging Delot further back. Yes, I do see that 100%. I just want to throw that into the Harry Maguire debate because I want to start on Harry Maguire. It was a comical performance at times because when the ball went near him, you thought you could see what was going to happen, and he looked to me like he was wearing boots that were like 2 sizes too big, like he was tripping over his own feet at times. And when the ball was coming, you could visualize what mistake he was going to make. Then ultimately he made that mistake. And it comes down to many things, but ultimately when you can visualize that and you can guess what's going to happen, just mentally, like he's shot mentally, he needs to be taken out. It's gone beyond Harry Maguire's problem now. And we were saying this months ago. It's not Harry Maguire's problem anymore. This is on the club and the manager, and the managers continue to pick him.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. This is the saddest bit, Tom. He's replaced Phil Jones. If you think of who's the comical character in the defense, it's Harry Maguire, and he's exactly what we used to do with Phil Jones. Is that you're waiting for the error now? It's not a matter of it's a mistake, it happens, and every defender has. I can think of Rio Ferdinand letting in a couple goals, and that happens as a defender. When you make a mistake, it's more times than not going to end up in a shot on target or a good opportunity. That happens, but with Maguire, just it's game after game. He's just the way he got turned by Adams yesterday, just really poor. I feel bad for him. He wasn't at fault for the goal. That is worth highlighting. Delot is the one. Delot gets beaten way too easily. And look, to be honest, if we're going to talk about defenders, I don't. Has Delot taken his opportunity, or is Wan-Bissaka just that bad that we've almost settled for Delot? I think it's the latter. Varane's had his moments. Overall, he's a good player. Like, yes, he's partially definitely he's partially at fault for the goal. I think it's like the Emad said, it stems from Bruno Fernandes. He's the one that causes the midfield to get outnumbered because he's pressing from the front like in headless chook. And then you've got McTominay and Pogba scrambling, and then McTominay doesn't know how to play in the six because he's not a six, and that's not his fault. And he doesn't read the game well, and positionally, he's not great. So I think there are so many individual errors that lead to the goal. And how do you fix that?
Look, there is no answer in how to fix it. But you talk about decision making and intelligence up front, and in terms of Bruno Fernandes and the stupidity to go and press constantly in the way he does. On social media and sort of modern fans, that there's this sort of trend. Unfortunately, it's a sad trend, but this sort of player agenda and player FC, and people sort of have these agendas. No matter what happens, I want to support this player or hate this player. Well, I despise that. However, I'm getting to the stage now, and I know I'm biased. I know this is not the correct answer, but I have my doubts over Anthony Elanga. I don't see a future at Manchester United for him. I like what he's coming in at the moment. I'll be playing him over Marcus Rashford. I definitely don't want to be seen playing at the moment. Jesse Lingard, I'm not happy when he comes on the pitch because I don't think he's 100% committed. I think he's off in the summer. I don't like him getting on having minutes. Ultimately, yes, but then play Hannibal in that role. But ultimately now some of the issues we have, whether that be stems from control, whether that stems, we have some of the dumbest footballers in the English Premier League playing for Man United. So we don't have a sort of, if you're ranking like sort of levels, our intelligence levels compared to other teams isn't high. In terms of keeping our shape like a Bruno Fernandes or a Marcus Rashford, it used to be a Dan James used to be unable to keep their shape. I think I'm getting to the stage now where the season does feel like it's over, Larry. I'm just going to hop on one of these player FC agendas. One matter needs to start starting football matches.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He controls the game. He knows how to pass and move. Juan Mata understands space. And all football is about, Tom, fundamentally, football is about creating space and creating the numerical advantage. If you create the advantage, you create overlaps, and that's how you score goals. Juan Mata understands that better than any other player in our team. I'm all for that. Like you said, I don't want to go too hard on Rashford, but he's poor, mate. He is so bad.
Even the Old Trafford crowd sort of a little bit of a sarcastic applause and a bit of a boo when he went off.
He's awful. He's nothing short of awful. And for anyone who's criticized Anthony Martial's work rate, I'm telling you, Rashford's is 1,000 times worse. He gives off the impression that he works hard because he has like a grimace on his face. He doesn't track back at all. He doesn't give a shit. He's big man Marcus Rashford. He's feeding kids out there. He's got the brand. He's MR11, MR10, whatever. He doesn't care. I'm not going to say he doesn't care. That's a step too far. But
no. In regards to on the pitch, you're completely right. In regards to the facts that we see, and yeah, I always thought that was an unfair comparison in regards to there was this myth, and it simply was a myth that Marcus Rashford got through more work than Anthony Martial. Like Martial wasn't the hardest worker, but he got through a hell of a lot more than Rashford, and I think that's something that was overlooked. And you look at the protection a lot of the English players do have within the media and some parts of the fan base, because you do look, and not to sort of pin all our problems on individual players, because all our players need to take huge responsibility this season. But you look at some of the big issues at the moment: Luke Shaw, Harry Maguire, and Marcus Rashford. That England team, and we talk about these cliques in the dressing room, and I'm not to blame them for our problems. Our problems stem far greater than those three players. But it's kind of concerning that those are the three, in my opinion, if you highlight individuals, they are three of the biggest culprits at the moment.
Yeah, Luke Shaw. Tom, you want to talk about intelligence? How Luke Shaw positionally, he has no clue. He has no clue.
Do you think he only played because Tevez coming back from COVID?
I think so. I expect Tevez to start against Brighton. Is your spoiler for the match preview? Tevez starts. Surely Maguire gets dropped. Oh my god! If Maguire starts against Brighton, I'm done.
Mike's saying, I only just joined, but Luke Shaw and Maguire need to be dropped indefinitely. Well, I read that in regards to indefinitely. I read that as immediately. They have to. But then ultimately, I said that last week. I said that the week before. I said that the week before that. And ultimately, they're still playing. They're making the same mistakes. And that, in my opinion, comes down to the manager. And the manager's situation is so precarious because he's not our manager. In 6 weeks' time, or a couple of months' time, he might not be the manager. And then you think, well, what decision should be made now for the future manager? Or he might recommend himself. And then if he does recommend himself, They obviously didn't back him in the January transfer window. We're potentially going to lose 7 or 8 players in regards to free running out of their contracts. So what does our squad look like next season? It's just an absolute mess. So is there anything else on the game you sort of want to touch on before we move on to positives in 3-2-1s?
But there was a report coming out this morning that Arnold is willing to back Ralph Rangnick in the sense of he wants Ten Hag. He is happy to go hard for Ten Hag and support Ralph Rangnick's preference, and I really hope that's true. I really hope that's true because I think you look at Ralph Rangnick, the way he speaks, he is intelligent. I think if you give him some sort of power in terms of the football department, I think he can make some positive changes. But I think you're seeing it's the perfect storm time in terms of you've got a coach who hasn't coached for a long time. His assistants aren't experienced at the top level of the game. You've got a new system being taught to players halfway through a season. Like it's honestly a recipe for disaster. And to make matters worse, the Martial performance against Sevilla, I saw the assists, whatever. It was good, but whatever. Van de Beek, though, before we move on to 3-2-1s, I have to talk about his performance for Everton yesterday. All the press coming, all the noise coming out of United is this guy can't play in a 2-man midfield. He absolutely bossed it for Everton yesterday. Most interceptions in the final third on the pitch. He won all his duels, all his headers. He had, I think, 50-odd touches, which is good for a midfielder. So full credit where it's due to Donny. It's one game. It is one game, but I hope he continues to impress and hopefully he comes back next season.
Yeah, no, look, I think every week we're going to be looking at the Donny van de Beek situation because we don't know who the manager is. So there is obviously a clear answer out there in regards to the manager. If it is Ten Hag, you have to assume Donny van de Beek has a very big future at Manchester United. So we're going to have to be looking at the Dutchman's time at Everton. But just one more comment here before we move on to 3-2-1s. I hope everyone realises that just because we change the manager again, don't expect big changes, too many bad eggs to move on. Yeah, we've done this dance plenty of times, Alex. We do this dance every couple of years, and I'm not getting my hopes up with a change of manager. I'll try and be positive. I'll see the positives in it. But ultimately, we know what's going to happen. Even if it's with Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, ultimately, until things change for the good and for proper, they're not going to change, unfortunately. But we'll move on to, I don't know if scrape the bottom of the barrel, because as I said, there was 45 minutes of very good football and some individual performance, which were quite good at times. But we will go on to 3-2-1s. So let us know in the live chat below who gets your 3-2-1 votes. Clear answer for me, Jadon Sancho. I think he's starting to shine.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Dangerous every time he got the ball. He looked good. He's looking lively. He's settled in and he's looking creative. His dribbling's phenomenal. Some of the things he did yesterday, one-on-one, is absolutely breathtaking. His dribbling ability is phenomenal. I really like Sancho. Well-taken goal as well. I think that's his 4th or 5th for the season.
All these goals come off the opposition. They're always close to like own goals or deflections. I want to see a clean goal.
Yeah, I hear you. He'll get there. But
his first one was a clean one.
Yeah, it was. But his level of performance has really improved, and it's good to see. We all knew this would happen, and he's taken his opportunity. And can I say his work rate off the ball, 10 out of 10. I can't fault him there.
Yeah, no, he's almost. Is this lazy? He's almost. I don't want to say perfect hybrid, but let's say he's a perfect hybrid of Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford at the moment. In terms of what we want.
Well, he's got the dribbling ability of Martial and he's got the work rate to back it up.
Yeah.
Maybe not as pacey, but he doesn't need pace when he can beat you.
No, definitely a few comments here. Pogba 3, Sancho 2, Alanga for 1. I forget Alanga's performance,
for 1.
Yeah, that's a shout. I forgot. I watched a match not far from it. I completely forgot Alanga sort of even touched the ball. So as I said, I'm not going to go back and watch the highlights, but fair play. Hopefully, Anthony Alanga did stand out. See if his name pops up anyway. Vin saying Sancho, Pogba, and David De Gea. Emad Sancho for 3, Pogba for 2, and give 1 to whoever you want. Yeah, I think Rob refusing to give 1 point as well. Sancho and Pogba. Dion, Sancho, De Gea, and Pogba, and George going Sancho for man of the match. David De Gea and Paul Pogba. Honourable mentions for Harry Maguire. Reverse some points, I think, or take some points off him maybe. But in regards to that, would you just be going? In my opinion, it's almost a straight shootout. It would be a very clear answer. Not over the 90 minutes, but Paul Pogba stood out for me as he was on it in that first half. He looked, you watched him play and you thought, we shouldn't be getting rid of this player.
Yeah, Yeah, I'd agree with that. First half, he played like a midfielder in control, in his element. We don't see it enough. But like I said, I think Paul Pogba looked brilliant, but the way Southampton play, because there are two sides, and that's the thing, I've fallen into this trap before, Tom. Southampton didn't sit back. They didn't sit in a low block, and that played into United's hands. You saw a very open first half, and it was entertaining. As a neutral, you would have loved that game. And I think with you give someone with Paul Pogba space, he can hurt you. So I'd like to see him put in that sort of performance against Brighton when they inevitably sit in a low block. But on this game, yeah, absolutely, he was good.
Yeah, no. So definitely Sancho and Pogba for 3 and 2 points. For 1 point, I don't know. A lot of people were putting David De Gea in there. I assumed I'd probably go along with the live chat. I can't remember too much from David De Gea. Maybe it's a world-class save I've completely forgotten about after one too many drinks. But in saying that, other than that, there's really no one else to choose from. None of the attacking players. Did Varane, obviously,
Bruno, to be honest. I thought Bruno was awful in the second half. But he's the one who plays the key pass to Rashford to give the goal to Sancho.
Bruno was, as I said, I think Bruno would have been man of the match if Marouane Fellaini was up front. If those passes were going up to Marouane Fellaini's chest, would be saying how creative Bruno Fernandes was, but what he was doing, because Fellaini wasn't there, they weren't going to anyone. They'll go on an opposition player, which ultimately made it a stupid and wasteful pass. So I've no idea what to make of Bruno Fernandes.
Who's the worst cross of the ball, Diogo Dalot or Ashley Young?
Look, Ashley Young, I hated him. Not hated him. I sort of had a lot of respect for him. I love the guy, but I hated seeing him play consistently at fullback. And but if you actually do look back at his time, he probably actually did better than a lot of us sort of gave him credit for.
I think you'd take him over any of the fullbacks we have right now. Not at his age, but as frustrating as Ashley Young was back then, he's better than anything that anyone's producing right now.
Yeah, no, hard to argue. I wouldn't argue with the chat, though. Would you just go standard point for David De Gea? Who else? There's because Rafael Varane was the least mistake-worthy, but obviously people say he's at fault for the goal. So I don't think you can give it Rafael Varane. So there's no one else. Scott McTominay, I thought, just wasn't a six. It was a highlighted game where he's got those issues. Not issues. It's not his game. We don't ask Rafael Varane why isn't he a great left winger, because he's a centre back. So we're asking Scott McTominay why isn't he a great number six, when in my opinion he's not a number six. He's further forward. So Scott McTominay didn't do anything. Obviously got hooked. I have to go with the chat saying David De Gea.
Give it to De Gea. Very fair play.
He's already won the trophy anyway. He's won these 3-2-1s anyway. He's 20 points ahead of Ronaldo. So. Email, he's saying, Tom, please, I saw your reactions to Bruno losing possession. You're not giving him a point. I didn't give him a point. I said he was almost woeful. I didn't know what I made of him. If those passes were to a Belgian with an afro, I think he would have had a brilliant performance. But ultimately, it was a Portuguese.
I really didn't want to give De Gea points. I really didn't. I just didn't think he did anything of note. Not a criticism. He wasn't busy.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a save, but ultimately, actually, there were one or two saves. I remember, but not that. There was that. It was the one for the cameras in the first half, where he actually catches it.
Give it a Martial. He got 2 assists yesterday. Give it a Vanderbilt.
We'll go Sancho, Pogba, and David De Gea. So, is there anything else? We'll try and keep this relatively short by our standards, about on the half-hour mark. So, I do appreciate everyone in the live chat and your interaction. Obviously, a feisty episode, but an emotional one, because we're just getting sick of it, Larry. We're getting absolutely sick of it.
We just got to put a good second half together. You know what?
If we put the good second half, we won't put a good first half together.
Yeah, probably. It's a strange one. It's a strange one. If we're taking the emotion out of it, you have to think that there is a turning point, because we simply cannot keep creating the level of chance. Like Ronaldo, like 9 times out of 10, that's a goal. Like, he obviously doesn't see the defender. If he goes laces there, it's a goal. It's just a really unfortunate situation. He can't buy a goal at the moment, Ronaldo. He looks frustrated. His biggest drought in 13 years as well, it must be said.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Rob here saying Scott's a walk-in. He did sort of give that impression the other day. However, I would trust Scott McTominay on a yellow card more than I would Fred. But maybe Fred has to come back into the team. Maybe a bit of energy. I don't want Fred back in the team, but look, things can't get worse. We have won football games with Fred in midfield. Actually, Lewis here, obviously a good friend of ours, and obviously been on the podcast in regards to talking about Brazilian footballs at Man United. He just started his own podcast as well today, which we had a bit of a trial run. So when he gets all the details sorted, I'll let you everyone know where to find Lewis in his new channel. Obviously, very knowledgeable football fan. agrees with me. Well, he's asking the question, but we are agreeing with that. Alex Tellez has to come back in.
I don't think we miss Alex Tellez, but I think he's better than Luke Shaw.
Yeah, well, the manager says that the manager's first decision when he came in was to drop Luke Shaw and put Alex Tellez in. So, and he obviously has those comments about Luke Shaw a couple of years ago, saying he's not a left back at the standard required for Manchester United. So, yeah, I think both fullbacks are the same thing with Diogo Dalot and Alex Tellez. We think good enough, but they're better than the other options. But ultimately, if we want to go win a Champions League or Premier League, maybe you do need better. And unfortunately, we look at the gaping holes. We want a £100 million player to walk in the midfield. We're going to need a £100 million striker to lead the line when Ronaldo leaves. Ultimately, to buy a fullback in terms of winning a Premier, they're going to cost you £50 or £60 million as well.
Well, if United actually have this amazing scouting network that Ed Woodward always used to gloat about, then surely they can find better than the £50 million option.
Fingers crossed. Well, we'll see if Ralph Rangnick has any say in that in a couple of months when he supposedly goes upstairs. And Rob reminded me that Brighton won't be easy. Brighton away. Is it Brighton at home or away? Probably away. I don't know. I've lost track of all the fixtures. But yeah, Brighton play good football and we struggle against teams who play good football, unfortunately. So I think that game is on Wednesday morning for us. So obviously we'll be back on Wednesday night. Likely maybe something before then, but we'll obviously keep you posted on all our socials. But until then, Larry, always a pleasure.
Highlight being at the pub yesterday. Actually got to spend some time with people, eat some food, and then it went downhill from there. So yeah, Tom, always a pleasure, mate. And we'll do a previewing how we'll inevitably draw to was about to say Burnley, how we draw to Brighton.
Yeah, it does feel like that. Get your standard 1-1 draw predictions in when we do the preview. But as I said, we did have a good night out. Went for a couple of burgers and a couple of beers before the match, and it is enjoyable. The match wasn't enjoyable, but obviously very good company. So I do appreciate everyone who did come out to the match at Scruffy Murphy's to watch with the Man United Supporters Club here. If you are in Sydney and do want to get involved with that, the link is in the description for the Man United Supporters Club. Feel free to sign up. It would be great to have more Reds and more match kickoffs. I assume the next one won't be for a while. It'll be when kickoff times change towards the end of the season. A lot of the games now, unfortunately, those 3 a.m., 2 a.m. games. So not many kickoff times on the horizon, but I'm sure when we do, we'll be back at the pub to watch another frustrating draw.
Can't wait.
If you do enjoy, or if you are frustrated by those draws, please do leave a like on the video. It will cheer Larry and I up very much. And if you are new, if you could hit subscribe, that would be great. And until then, we'll chat to you. Have a good one. Cheers.
Cheers.